Welcome back to the 6-part tutorial series with myself, Jamie Hartley, on Serato Studio. In this third video lesson, we're going to be taking the project we worked on before, but really getting creative with it. And this is where you can start to make the tracks that you play and the sets that you build in your DJ sets really stand out, because we're going to be making an acapella intro, which is where you will take an acapella of a song and then you've got that isolated by itself to mix over an instrumental of another song before the beat kicks in and it goes into the original song. However, we're going to take it a step further. We're going to get creative with it. We're going to be adding some wordplay with the acapella into the AJ Tracey track that we've been working on in the previous videos. So this is a really cool technique. Again, all with the free version of Serato Studio. Let's have a listen to what the end result is going to sound like before diving into the tutorial. That's what it sounds like. So now let's dive into the project and I'm going to build it from scratch and show you how I put this acapella intro together. So as you can see, we are back in the AJ Tracey West 10 project that we've been working on in the previous two videos. We're still in the free version of Serato Studio. This lesson, however, is all about getting creative because we've made this song more practical to just mix in a basic way in our DJ sets. But there is way more you can do with Serato Studio, especially from a DJ perspective too. So a creative DJ tool that a lot of turntablists or routine-based DJs will use are things like word plays or acapella intros. And we're going to combine these two techniques and make our own acapella intro wordplay into West 10. Now, the thinking behind this is where the creativity comes in, but using Serato Studio can make this really simple. Whereas it might be really difficult to perform live and cut up acapellas and mix multiple things at once. If you're in the middle of a routine, you can prepare this and plan it using Serato Studio and then export it ready to just play so it's clean every single time you want to perform it in the routine. So first of all, what I'm going to do is just delete the scenes that I've got because I'm going to start afresh. I want to start with an acapella sample and chop up an acapella as my intro and then add some other bits and potentially some drums, but I don't need these drums to start with. So I'm just going to delete this and even just delete all of the drums. There we go. So I'm back to square one with my scenes. I could delete these. However, I've still got the chop at the start of the West 10, so I've still got my instrumental intro, which I want to keep for now. I might use different clips later on, but let's just leave it as that. Back in the scenes, the next thing is we're going to introduce something new, and this is add a sample. So we're in the scenes, all we've done so far is worked on the drum kit, but there are other options such as samples and instruments as well. So if I click add sample, it will bring up a new sample deck, and this is within the scene, and it just says drop sample here. So I've got an acapella by Jade, Don't Walk Away, and the reason why I've chosen that one is there is a common theme in West 10. If I just play the song, let's go back to the track. You hear it says, Don't You Know I'm Walking Away, and this is a theme throughout the song. Again, when it kicks in. So at the start of the song, it's saying, Don't You Know I'm Walking Away. And I know an old school track from Jade called Don't Walk Away Boy. So there's the link there. And I can use this because I've got the acapella. I can use this wordplay connection to create an acapella intro and then do some really cool stuff to transition into West 10. So back to the scenes. I'm going to find my acapella by Jade and I'm just going to drag it quickly onto the sample deck. Back into the Serato Studio and drag the sample there. It analyzes it. It's worth noting that the original acapella, as you can see here, is 103 BPM, but we don't need to worry about that. Serato Studio has analyzed it and made sure that when we play it, it's much faster at the project's BPM at 130. It will also automatically sync the key. Now, it just so happens this acapella is in the same key as our main project, but as you can see here, if I play this and change the project key, it syncs. So you can drag anything in here and it will do its best to analyze the key and then pitch it to make sure it stays in key with your project. So you can get really creative. You don't have to know much music theory. This sync button on the sampler will sync any samples you drag in to the main project. Next, this is very similar to the audio track that we've got. You'll notice we have the clips that we've covered. If we go back to scenes, we've also got these samples here, and all this is doing is Serato is finding different samples throughout the song that we could chop up. Now you can just toggle through, and if you were producing a beat, you could find some really cool vocal samples by just toggling this. Now what I'm interested in is the chorus. Now we'll see if it's found the chorus. I don't think we have on this one. Let's press find samples again. And if it hasn't found it automatically, what we can do is just go find it ourselves. So the chorus is somewhere around here. Here. So this is the bit that I want to sample. Again, it's Don't Walk Away, just like West 10, where it says, don't you know I'm walking away. So I'm going to come to the start of this phrase of the vocal, and let me just press Command and A, and you'll see it selects all the samples. I can press the bin, come back to where the chorus starts. So this is the start, as you can see by the grid. That's the start of the vocal sample. A lot of the times with vocals, if you are used to mixing any acapellas as a DJ, the vocals don't always start on the number 1. This vocal, for example, starts on the number 2. But I'm just going to set the cue point on number 1 to start with. There we go. So next, I just need to write this so that it will play in its entirety for, say, 4 bars. And I've still got my 4 bars available on the scene here. All I need to do is simply click and drag it out. Now, if I played it now, it would only play 1 bar and it stops, as you heard. So I need to drag this into all 4. A common mistake is people would go in and then write it in again, but all that's going to do is loop it, as you can hear. So let me click and get rid of that. To extend this across all 4 bars, I need to come to the end, and you'll see my cursor changes, and just drag it out to the right, and you'll notice it flashes 2, 3, 4 and moves along all 4 bars. When it's gone solid, I can then bring it right to the end. Now let's preview this. So that's good, apart from at the end it says no, and I would quite like to just shorten that and potentially get rid of it. Let's have a listen to this. So that sounds good. Now, it's very dry at the end, obviously, it cuts off. So straight away, I'd want to add an effect to this sample. All I need to do is click on the sample in my scene. As we've covered before, the effects for the whole of that sample are on the right-hand side here. I'm going to add some reverb. Let's do delayed reverb, and I'm going to add a delay as well. And let's see what this sounds like. We can change the beat fraction as well and just test it. Try 3/2. So that sounds pretty cool. Maybe not quite as much on the effects. And then obviously at the start of the sample it goes duh. It's like the end of the last word. Now, a music production term that I'm just going to introduce you to is attack and release. On the samples here, on the sample player, you can see we have the attack and the release. All this means is how much do you want to hear of the start of the sample? And the attack will basically delay how much you hear at the start. So just for this, I can pretty much get rid of this duh at the start by just bringing the attack up, and I can just test. You can hear if I go really drastic, 10, it fades in. But I don't want it 10 seconds long. It's probably going to be about half a second. There we go. And it's just taken away this. Much nicer. So there we go. It's as simple as that. That's now, I'm going to change that to ACAP intro. Great. Let's have a listen. So next I need to create some space because I don't want this to play over the top of our intro so far. So I'm going to make 4-bar space and then drag down ACAP intro 4 times. Let's have a listen to how that sounds as it loops over. So this is sounding good, and we've got 4 bars worth of acapella that we could layer over an instrumental. When we're DJing, we can just drop it over a beat. But after this acapella, it just jumped straight into the previous intro that we created. Let's have a listen. So there's not much connection there. What I want to do is introduce the vocal quite early. So this clip here, we need to connect the vocals together. So I'm going to bring this clip down, or we've already got it here. I'm just going to move it to that position. And then I've got one. Let me delete that. So let's have a listen. And I'm going to leave an instrumental section, and then I'm just going to repeat it again. Drag that clip. Let's use the option and duplicate. Option, duplicate. And then we can just basically alternate these. Have a listen. So I'm basically just looping the first 8 beats from each clip over and over. And that works. Now, the wordplay connection is there because we've got the acapella. And then it says, "Don't you know I'm walking away?" But we can take this a step further. And what we could do is chop up the "Don't Walk Away" acapella over the top of this intro, just so that both are kind of playing at the same time, and the audience, the listener, can really get the transition and get the wordplay and how these 2 tracks work together. So back into the scenes, I'm going to duplicate this scene because I don't want to mess around with this now. That's set, but I need to duplicate it so then I can chop it up and do something different with it. Once it's copied into a new scene, basically what we need to do is not touch this sample here of the vocal, because that is our acapella intro where it just plays right through. However, we don't want that to play, so we can happily click here to get rid of that sample. So ultimately there is nothing going on in this scene now, but we need to keep it there because it's worth being aware. If I were to delete this out of this scene, it would also delete out of this scene as well. Or if I were to change the sample or the cue points in this scene 2, it would also change the way the samples react in scene 1. So I just need to add another sample with the exact same thing in. So add sample again and then add the acapella as another sample. And this is my sample chops now, rather than it just playing the sample through. So if I just add that vocal in for a second time, and just drop the sample there. If I affect this now and set up loads of samples to chop up for my acapella intro, it's not going to affect the acapella in the first 4 bars. Okay, so let me rename it to ACAP Chops. And then all I want to do is set a slicer on the chorus again. So I think we've got the chorus somewhere around here. So if I just get my playhead here, I'm going to delete all of these. Here we go. And I'm going to set a slicer that is, let's try 2 beats in length. And we've got all this chorus sliced into 8 different beats. If you have a slicer on your DJ equipment, this is basically what the slicer is doing. It's setting up points across 8 beats, and then you can chop around. Now this is great for sampling because I could play along on my keyboard, or if you've got a controller, you could plug your controller in, a Serato controller, you can plug it in and use the pads on there to start getting creative. But I'm going to use just the keys 1 to 8 on my actual laptop. And I can basically play them like drums. Now, I need to record some chops in, but I need to think where those chops are going to be. If I listen to the original intro that I've made, it says, "Don't you know I'm walking away?" And then we've got a gap here for bars 3 and 4. So let's just drop this down so you can see these are my 4 bars. The second half, bars 3 and 4, there isn't any vocal. So let me play it again. So I'm thinking to have something about walking away from the acapella on this second half. So let me try number 4. There we go, walk away. So it says, "Don't you know I'm walking away?" And I want it to go walk, 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 walk away over the second half of this bar, of these 4 bars. So to do this, I'm going to put something called the metronome on. This is the metronome here. It basically clicks along. So if I press play, it clicks in time with the project BPM. So I can just practice. I'm just practicing. And then when I'm ready to record, I want to make sure I record on the bar 3 and 4. So I just hit record here, and now whatever I do, it will record it in. Ready for 3? Now I think I misshot that, so let's have a look when it gets to 3. So you can hear that wasn't quite right, but that's fine. I can just pause, drag it with my mouse, and just replay. Empty on 1, 2, and then 3. I quite like that. I'm just going to extend the walk away at the end, so we get the whole word. Oh, go back a bit. There we go. Right, let's test that over the top of the actual beat. Don't you know I'm walking away? Walk away. Don't you know? Cool. So that sounds good, but we've got room to add some more in there as well. So what I think I'm going to do is have... Don't you know? So it starts with "Don't You Know" on the West 10 version. So I need to find the don't. So I could do some little chops there. Maybe for the first 2 beats. If I click on the metronome again and the record, it will count me in for 4 beats before recording. Maybe do that kind of pattern. Let's have a listen to how that sounds. Don't you know I'm walking away? Walk away. And then bar number 4, there is a gap as well. So let's listen to the different samples. I quite like this. Oh no. So again, we could just play. Nothing in 2. Cool. Let's hit record and record that. I'm just listening to preview it, and then we'll listen to it over the... Cool. Now let's listen to it over the beat. And that works quite well. Again, it's quite dry. The other acapella, we had the effects on, so I could repeat that and just come onto my new samples and add some effects on here. I could add an echo. We could try that. Let's have a listen. Let's listen to it over the beat. I quite like that. And then it goes into the track. Still that wordplay linking it together. Don't you know I'm walking away? And we're using similar words from each song, the acapella and the original song, to kind of combine them together in this creative intro. After that, the only other thing I'd maybe look at is using the empty 2 scenes. So we've got scenes 3 and scenes 4, where I could copy these across and basically change up the last bar of each section of the intro. So acapella intro here, if I copy that across, what I might want to do now is just add a riser, so something to go to drop into this next section to indicate we're about to switch it up. So again, all I need to do is add a sample and find my sample first. If I go into library, and we'll see if we can find some risers or some sort of riser in the drums. I'll just type in rev for reverse cymbal. I want this reverse cymbal. Let's have a listen. What about the one above? So that's quite cool. I'm just going to see if I can just drag that as a new sample. And if we have a listen to it, we've got some cue points here. I'm just going to delete them. And I just want a cue point, basically, sort of 4 beats before the end. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bars, sorry. And I'm going to just move that cue point to be at the 4th bar. Let me delete that. Go back to there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll work well. So again, all I need to do is drag that out across the length of the 4 bars. And this is like what we did with the vocal earlier on. I'm just dragging it out so I play the whole sample. Now when I go back to song view and drag this in, I should still have the Don't Walk Away vocal sample here. I don't have any vocal chops in here because that's in this scene. So because I duplicated the first scene, I just have the original vocal and this reverse cymbal super duper sample that is a reverse sort of uplifting sound. So if we listen. There we go. And then it's up to you. This is personal preference. You could decide if you think it's still too much of a breakdown. You could add some basic drums into this scene, the acap chops. I could just test it. I could go random beat. And let's just play it on the timeline. So if you prefer that, you could obviously keep it. If not, you could just delete those drums out of the sequencer here. But that sounds pretty cool. So let's listen to it right from the just before that section comes in. And listen to how the drums come in. I quite like that. That's cool. And then again, just to alternate this last bar of the intro, we could go onto our acapella chops, which we're on, and then copy it across. So we've got the exact same now, but I can delete this out. Drag my new acapella chops down. And then just vary the drum beat. I could get rid of the drum beat at the number 4 bar and the number 3 bar. And then it leaves that gap. Let me just listen. For the new drums from the original song. And lastly, I could just add that riser in again. So on the last one, add the riser in. Same as before. Extend it out across the 4 bars. And then let's just test this out. And there we go. Okay, I'm going to preview it from the start so you can hear what happens for our new acapella intro with the vocal chops as well. And there's wordplay going on. Really creative tool that we can use in our DJ sets and especially in DJ routines. And this means every time I perform this, it's going to sound nice and clean because I've built it and structured it in Serato Studio, and I don't have to perform all these chops live using hot cues, for example, when I'm DJing. And there we have it, the full intro version, and all we need to do then is to export this. Now I'd recommend potentially when you get to this point putting on this master compressor excuse me, on the master channel, because what that's going to do when you start adding lots of different layers, like lots of different vocals and drums and original audio, the compressor basically makes the louder sounds a bit quieter and the quieter sounds a bit louder and averages out everything that's going on. Now I don't want to put too much on it because we're still using this full audio from the original song, but it might help just gel together this section of the intro. Too much and it's going to distort it too much, but just add a little bit on. And now all that's left to do is click export and save this file. I'm hoping by this point in this tutorial series, you've really got some inspiration and feel pumped to get started in this world of music production. And you're already coming up with some of your own ideas of what you can do with the music in your library as well. In the next 3 videos, we're using the full version of Serato Studio. So click the link in the description below or in the card and enter the code Crossfader to get 2 months free of the full version of Serato Studio. So you can follow along very easily with the next 3 videos.